All right, so welcome to another episode of 360 video tutorial or training. In previous episode, as all those series we're gonna do, I did a brief introduction to 360 video production, including what is 360 video, what's its difference between conventional videos and what time, which type you should use. And then when you choose to use 360 video to capture contents, what are the pros and tips, don'ts and don't do's and do's that is useful for you to remember or keep in mind when you're actually doing the production, and then I introduce some other kind of tips. And then I give a preview of all the entire process workflow of 360 video production. And then like what I said back then, I would like to do a live demo showing the entire workflow of 360 video production, started from camera setup introduction to actually capturing the footage, and then get the footage out of the camera, process it on the laptop or in any software that we choose to use. So that is the content of this episode. So let's just begin. All right, the first part, I will give a brief introduction. No, not a brief introduction, a live demo and introduction to the camera that we are going to use for 360 production and demo today. So here with me is the Insta360 1R kit that we designed and made ourselves. Not the camera, I mean the kit here in HitLab. And if we open the Pelican box, you will get exactly something like this when you were using, or maybe you also use other cameras that you choose to purchase yourself. But this is the camera that I use the most, and then I use the most in the lab. So that I will also recommend for all consumer level or normal daily 360 video production. And then in the kit, it contains pretty much everything that I think is essential for a normal 360 video content production. And if you open the box, you will find a card that lists almost all the parts inside the box. But I'm not going to read the cards because it's more like a reference. I'm going to put this one away. So inside the box, you will find a camera body. I'm going to pick one of them out. I have another. So this is a camera itself. And then a battery charger, and then extended battery. So this one is comparing to installed on the camera. This is bigger. So the 1R is a modular system, which means you can swap batteries, swap lenses. I will get into them later. So this is a battery charger. So it has a USB-C plug, and you put the battery on, it charges it and clips, and actually you can put two batteries on charging at the same time, which is very useful. And then the charging brick and some data cable or charging cable, actually two of them. So these are the accessories. And then like what I said, because it's modular, it also comes with a regular flat video module that is used for non-360 capture. So I'm gonna demo the module part very soon enough. Backup SD card, and then there's a microphone to USB-C adapter inside. And I'm gonna demo how to use it in a short bit. And then the most important part as well, a selfie stick and a tripod. So this is very useful because you can either handhold to use the camera or use the selfie stick with the tripod. So you can make the camera stand up somewhere on the flat surface. And so there will be an extendable. So it's like this, and easy to carry and then easy to use. But I'm gonna show how to use them a little bit. So put this one aside. So the camera, 360 camera, because in the last video, like I said, it comes with two lenses, and then they are extruding from the side. So one thing to always keep in mind when you are not shooting content, always put on the lens protector, because if you drop it or it falls on the ground, and then the lens are very, very easy to be scratched. And once the lens is scratched, the camera cannot capture good content, and then you got a problem. So always put it on. But now, in order to show the modular setup of the camera, I will just temporarily remove it. And then the camera is actually clamped in this GoPro-like frame. So it has a GoPro mount, and then 1/4-inch mount that can be attached to other accessories. So to release the camera from the frame, you pull this tab on top, and then this clamp goes to the sideways, and the frame opens up. And now the camera can be popped out from the side. We'll put the frame aside. So this is the camera body. And you can see it comes with three components. The computing unit, or say the central body, is the screen with some controls on the side. And then this is the lens. So, and then the battery, the red one is on the lower part. So they came in 3 parts into one body. So if you want to sweat the battery, just push the lever here and the battery comes off. And say I want to use a bigger battery, so you remove the bigger battery from the charger and then find the attachment and just clip on. So modular, you have a camera that is attached with bigger battery. The problem with this one is you cannot fit into a frame, and then this battery, although comes foot for GoPro mounts, it has no 1/4 inch screw, so it's kind of sacrificed a little bit on what kind of attachment or accessory you can use. So normally I would not use it other than some extreme conditions that you know the camera will be leave there for extended period of long time, that you want a longer battery life, you're going to use this, or as a backup. So you're going to remove this one for now and then get the battery back on. And so that's the camera itself. And now, like what I said, modular. So if I remove the battery first, and then I can detach the lens from the screen, the computer unit. I'm going to put this lens temporarily away and don't drop a table. So now you can attach the 4K non-360 module onto the body and then reattach the battery. So now you've got something that looks very like a GoPro. You got a screen on the back, you got a lens, so this shoots a normal video as an action camera. And because it attaches both ways, so the lens can be flipped on the other side. So you will see the screen and the lens at the same time. It becomes like a selfie camera. But this setup is not something we are going to touch today because it's all about 360 video production. But I just want to show the reason I choose this camera as a go-to or daily driver is because it's modular and I can change it into different form factors to satisfy different purpose of daily use. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to resume it back to a normal 360 camera and move on to introduce some basic operations of a 360. So I'm going to remove the battery, remove the body, and put the lens on back again. The lens only goes in one way, that is labels on top, goes in, and you make sure these like places for the clamp is all on the bottom side, and then the battery goes in. So the camera, as a reminder, the camera comes with an on-body 10-meter water resistance for about 20 minutes, but it is only water resistant when it is assembled as a whole body. So if you just drop the parts into the water, it will just damage the electronics. So now I'm going to put it back into the frame. So I just want to make sure the opening hole here is aligned with the SD card door. I'm going to show it very soon a little bit, and then put it back, frames back on, and then make the clamp so it's back on. So let's look at the camera, but before that I would like to put away other things back into the box. So I'm going to show the camera very little bit. So we're going to use those, so I'm going to leave them here or just outside on the box. So let's look at the camera itself. So to turn the camera on, I can remove the lens cover for now. There are 2 buttons on the top. One is the power button, and then the red circle is the shutter button. So to turn the camera on, you long press the power button for a few seconds. You will hear this sound, and then the camera will turn on and the screen will be lit up. So in the screen you can preview what's being captured and use your finger to drag. And then on the screen it shows model and then specs. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, but when you get the camera, you can turn it on and have a look. And then on the left upper corner, it shows like how much amount of content you can capture. And then very important is the battery. And then when you turn on the camera, always pay attention to 2 things. First is the model. So sometimes the camera switch back to default, that it will go back to photo mode, which is the default. But in order to capture video, that's another thing, is the camera will turn off the screen to save battery life after 10 or 20 seconds of inactivity. But you want to double check the model that is on video if you want to capture video, and then make sure that what's the resolution or something like that. So right now it's in photo. So in order to get into video, I just tap the lower corner. It will bring up this menu, and then you see these 3 icons on the left. Tap the one in the middle, it goes to video, and then there are several video mode. We don't use time shift or bullet time, these fancy ones for now. We just use standard and tap on standard. It goes back into video mode. And on the lower upper corner, how can I see it more clearly? Let's put it on a black background. Oh, no, not like this. You're back. Yeah, it says 5.7/30. It means it's on resolution 5.7K and the frame rate is 30. And that's normally what I use because this is the highest resolution and the spec the camera supports. You can tap it on see it's on 5.7K and it's on 30 resolution. So this is a default set. We would always like to have the highest resolution possible on 360 videos. So I leave it as the highest resolution and frame rate as possible. And 30 is something we commonly use, and you just tap to confirm. So then you can see it says I can capture 2 hours and 60 minutes of worthwhile video into the SD card in there, and there's a battery indicator. Actually, I would never possible to burn out through the 2-hour amount of footage in one battery charge because the battery normally dies out around 35 to 45 minutes. If you're continuously recording and using the video and with the camera on, it will just burn through the battery in about half an hour or so. And then we'll even stop video recording when the camera gets too hot. So that's something you want to pay attention. And then when I set SD card, so another thing I want to point out is the SD card slot is on the side. So there's a little door here, and they're a little bit tricky about this thing. Some other people have problem with it, to either open it or losing it. So I would like you to know that to open the door and get access to the SD card, as well as the USB-C charger, and first thing you want to do is to turn off the camera. Whether the screen is on or not, this LED light on the both sides tells you if the camera is still on. So you long press the power button to turn it off. You will hear the sound, the camera is off. Now it's safe to whether access the USB-C or SD card, to use your finger to pry on this lever here towards right and then up. So this little door will just come loose. And then you will see there's a little rubber line that connects the little door to the camera body. Because this is a small thing, it's very easy to lose. That's why this is detached. So don't pry too hard. If you yank it off, you will pretty much lose this door, and then your camera is no more waterproof. The water gets into the USB-C port and then you damage everything inside. So just rotate it around, make sure it's just like hanging over there, and it's enough space for you to either to plug in a USB-C cable or access the micro SD card on the side. But normally what I recommend is not to get the SD card out to read the data. Just plug a USB-C and connect it to your computer or something. It will be recognized as a portable USB drive, and you can access the data such as the footage you recorded on the SD card already. So don't risking like prying over the SD card and it pops off and you lose it. So that's something we would like to avoid in most of the scenarios. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything around the camera. So normally to use it, you just make sure the SD card is there, and then to close the door, you see this little white arrow on the side. So point this arrow down inside the space first. So it's like the angle goes in, and then when it's almost closed, you pry the lever again, and then you see the yellow dots, make sure it's all over, and then push, and then it will be just lock back in, and then it's watertight. So you know it's okay, and you can just turn on the camera, hear the sound, and if you want to, like anytime you want to capture when you think it's ready, and then remember to like look around for everything, like I said in last episode, and then you press the shutter button once, and you will hear this sound. It tells you the camera is recording, and because when the camera recording, and sometimes you are far away, you don't see the screen, but this flashing red LED on both sides let you know that the camera it's rolling, so it's capturing content. Even after a few while, the screen is off. And I will more touch into actual capture contents and rolling the camera, whether using the bottoms control here or using a remote app in a few minutes. But this is about the basic operations of this camera. Okay, so you will see I changed to a mic because I want to demo something different later. Things you already got to know the basic operations of this Insta360 One-R, the 360 camera, and now you are going to capture some content, and then you are not supposed to use the camera, just put it on the table or holding on a hand, like what I said in last one. The camera's lenses capture the world, and it becomes the viewer's viewpoint when they watch the video, such as we say camera's lens is viewer's eye. So if you hold the camera in your hand, the viewer, when watching the 360 video you capture like this, will feel like you are holding their head in your hand. And this is something that is kind of weird to the viewer, so try to avoid that thing. So that's what I recommend or always do, is to set up the camera onto some supporting systems such as selfie stick or tripods. Then the camera can standing on the ground, more static, and then give more realistic feeling that they are as if the viewer are as if a character in the scene. So like what I showed in the box before. So normally what I do is to put on a selfie stick first and then put on the tripod. So if you're just holding, do some like walking and the capturing scenario, then selfie stick will work. And then like what I mentioned before, you just make sure the camera and the selfie stick is all straight. And then normally you just pull it up and into some length, and you just normally hold it. I'm not sure if it's doing the frame, but make it shorter. So just normally hold it like that. And then don't worry about the camera is tilted, because the auto correction and then its stabilizing system will use the gyroscope and the gravity sensor to auto correct the image in there. I will show it when I'm actually going to capture some content. So if you do some moving or walking shots, feel free to hold a selfie stick like that. And then I would not recommend to do it like a torch hold like this all the way upright, because the stabilization system cannot compensate the bobbing action when we are walking, and then you will see the camera is bobbing, and that will cause some kind of noisy issues to the viewer. So I will recommend it tilt a little bit. And then the image will not be tilted, but when we hold it sideways and then your hand and the selfie stick, this action somehow used to help to compensate the bobbing and up and down from walking. So that's one way if you do it mobile, but most of the other time we're gonna do the 360 capturing in a static fashion. So you're gonna attach on the tripod. The tripod is tractable as well as a selfie stick. So what you normally do is to set up the camera tripod on the ground and then adjust it to a normal height. So as a reference, now the camera is about my eye height because I'm sitting, and then I don't have a chair nearby, so I have to put it on a table again. So the camera is about my height. And then, like I mentioned before, now you can remove the lens cover, and then just remember, avoid pointing the seam, like what I said. Avoid pointing the seam towards the face. Always face the lens if you are doing some capture. And this particular camera, the 1R, the default front is the default orientation that your viewer is going to see when he or she pops into a VR headset or opens your video online, some player, is the default orientation. The front is where the screen is. So if you're capturing yourself telling some story or someone's tell a story, you might want to face the lens, the lens that has a screen towards the storyteller or the most important stuff. So when people opens the video, they will see the storyteller or the host or the most important object right away, without the risk of they're seeing the other side and they have to look around until realize that they're supposed to look at this and they already missed a couple seconds or a couple minutes of the footage already. So point the side has a screen and then the lens towards the storyteller, and in this moment, which is me. And then one way to just do recording is, like I said, it has a power button and a shutter button on the top. It's just long press the power button. You hear the sound, it turns on, and you can see the LED is flashing like blue, greenish. And if you look at the screen, it's already on. And then double check the model and the resolution. Well, I'm not going to show this way because I have to look at the screen. Double check the camera model and then the resolution, frame rate. If you're taking video, make sure it's in video mode, and then it's always on the highest resolution, which is 5.7K/30 frames per second for this camera. And then if you think everything's ready, everything's seen is ready and set, and then it's ready to go, and then you can just hit the shutter button, the one with the red circle on top once. Hear the sound, and then we'll start recording And sometimes it takes a little bit to start, so you will know it's actually recording if you see this flashing red LED. If it is there, the camera is rolling, and then you can just keep talking. Now the camera is actually recording me, but I will do the actual demo later. And then if it is done, or everything is fine, you hit the shutter button again. You'll hear this sound, and your camera will stop and save the battery, and then resume back to a blue LED. So you know the camera is in idle mode, and then your footage has been saved. So that's one way. And the other way is to do it in using a remote control, such as your phone. And it's iOS, iPhone, or Android. They all have this app called Insta360. So you can download it, and then it actually uses Wi-Fi that being broadcasted from the camera. So the phone connects to the Wi-Fi. So you can remotely control it in about 10 meter distance, I would say. And then you can, in some scenarios, such as you don't want to be yourself to show up in the scene, and you just only the storyteller and in the other contents. As a cameraman, you want to hide away somewhere that is not visible to the camera, but at the same time, you would like to preview or monitor what's being captured all the time. So you want to share like there's no people going into the scene by mistake, or if the face of the storyteller is being occluded by something else. So that's how you can use a remote control. So I'm gonna show how to do it. Now the camera is still on, determined by the LED, if you can see it. And then I already downloaded this app. So I'm gonna screen recording my phone. So I will show both what's happening here and then what I'm talking at the same time. So if you go to App Store, or similarly, if you're using Android, go to Google Play Store maybe, you will find this app called Insta360. 360 is for Go2, 1x, 2, 1R, X, whatever. If you open the app and just remove these things, so it's something like this. And then what you need is the icon in the middle. So it will, well, the last time I tried is a different camera. So if it's a first time connecting, it will not show this. You just go choose a different camera. And then we need to turn it on. The camera just turn it off by itself. So the camera is, turn it on. I will do it again. Double tap the one in the middle, different camera. It will start to trying to looking for a camera to connect. So it shows 1R, so it means the camera has been found. And it will do some connecting thing. Does it allow asking me to have to do firmware connection? Okay, cancel. Okay, it's first time connecting, so the camera has show up a pop-up window, and so I have to tap on confirm, so it will connect. Yeah, so it means I can temporarily ignore this firmware update in case it happens. So in some scenario, it will ask. See, it's asking if I want to join the Wi-Fi. My phone's in Chinese, so it shows like that. It will ask to join the camera's Wi-Fi. You just say yes, and it will say connecting to the camera's Wi-Fi. And after a while, it will connect it. And then you will see, it says connected on top. And then you tap this button again, you goes into the preview mode. And then once the camera is in preview, so you can see it's already previewing the image. And then the camera itself will turn off the screen. So the screen is black off the black, but you will still see the LED. It means the camera is still on. And then you can tap on the screen to do a preview. So it's in 360, you know, it's in video. It says on the most lower side, and then just change the mode, the video. And then most time I don't need to touch like the modes, but just double check on the screen. It says 5.7K, 30 FPS, and then just double check everything's correct. And then if you want to start shooting, because you can preview it, even you are far away somewhere, the camera is not visible to you, you can just double check things are already correct. And then tap on the screen, and you hear the sound, and then the camera is to start recording. And the same, the camera will show this red flashing LED. So everyone who's on the scene, such as the storyteller, will know the camera has started rolling, so they can start their narration or performance. And then while it's actually recording, you can still preview, so you will see everything being captured in the scene. And then if it's all done, just tap the stop button in the middle, and then this footage will be saved to the camera. So actually you can preview the saved image from here, and then, oh, it just started playing, you should go back, and then do some basic editing on the mobile phone app. So this Insta360 mobile phone app is very powerful, but I would say most of it is designed for using it as a stabilized action camera and then not exactly matching what I am looking at for capturing 360 video or contents. So maybe I will do a tutorial about the phone app in a different episode, but it's not what we are going to focus on today. So I will just use it as a remote to remotely control and preview or monitor the camera that is working from some distance, and you can start and stop the recording from here and then see what you're doing. So this is suitable for scenario that more than one people is being involved. Some are actors in the scene, some others works as a cameraman, so they can use the mobile phone to leave the camera at some other place and do that. So if it's only one person, like what I'm doing now, what I would prefer is just use the camera itself, tap the shutter button on top and start recording, and then tap it again to stop. And even my hands are so close to the camera in the shot, it'll be fine, because what I'm going to introduce and soon in the upcoming minutes is to do some trim of the part of footage you don't want and then do editing, so you can just remove the parts that you don't want in the later. But this, I show two ways of controlling the camera, whether to directly use the in-body buttons to start control directly, or use a remote phone, the mobile phone app, to do the remote control. So the last thing I would to talk about before actually going to shoot a real demo video and then the post-processing after that is to a little bit talk about how to set up a remote mic for the camera to use. So as I have touched a little bit in the first episode, that the camera has on-body microphone, and it's a special microphone, can pick up the environment sound pretty much good. And then if it's a very quiet scenario like the room I'm in now, I would say I can just use the microphone on board the camera to capture my speech, and it will be clean and good, so it won't be too much big a problem. But in some other scenarios, such as you are in an open outdoors place that you want the camera to capture some environmental sounds, such as the trees are waving, and the sound of wind or other things, people walking by, and the environment ones. But meanwhile, you also want to capture a good sound of the speech, the storyteller's narrative, or you will focus on the storyteller's narrative, that you want to avoid capturing ambient noise, that so people will have difficulty to catch what the storyteller is telling. Those scenarios I would recommend using a remote microphone. So what I have here is a pair of Rode remote microphones. So this works as a pair. So one is a receiver and one is I would say it's a transmitter. So this part goes to the speaker. So it's such as like the lapel mic I'm using now, a clip onto with the speaker, so it picks up the audio, and then it wirelessly sends audio to this receiver, while this receiver is connected to the camera via an audio cable. So it sends the audio signal directly into the camera being recorded with the video. So remember, in the box I said that the camera comes with an accessory like this. This is a 3.5 audio jack to USB-C converter, so you need this to connect the camera with it. So what you want to do is to turn off the camera first. And then remember, on the side, like what I said, there is USB-C port and SD card port at the same time. So you want to open this little port here, to just open it and then make it honey on the side. And then you plug this USB-C connector into the USB-C port. And then this remote wireless microphone use TRS to TRS converter. So this camera takes a TRS 3.5 audio jack, which TRS is a tip ring sleeve. So there are only two black rings, but you would notice it, and mostly on the user menu when you buy some external microphones, and you just know this camera takes in this accessory, use TRS instead of TRRS, which is commonly seen in many other mobile phones. So, well, maybe Google it for more details. And just two ends are the same. You just plug one end into the converter, another end goes on to the output end of the receiver. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you want to hide this part of accessory. So normally what I do is I hide all of them either directly beneath the camera or in its seam. So remember, the camera cannot see anything hitting its seam. So if you keep the profile really narrow, like why would I taped this part of the cable like this, is just to keep them as slim on this way as well. So the camera lenses, when being stitched, they don't see anything on this side. And if you do it like on the sideways, because the receiver body is wide, and then you will have some kind of issue that the part of the receiver, because they're so close to the camera, they may be visible in the scene, and the people will be wondering why there's a black part of color that's just like on the low, sits on the lower part of the view, and they will be feel like break their presence. So if you want to do it, what I would normally do is just stick or use duct tape to stick the receiver to this part of the selfie stick, and then make sure they are all perpendicular and hiding well inside the side of a camera, so they will not be seen like this. Yeah, that's normal setup what I do. And then you give this part of the transmitter to the storyteller. I did it several times in several projects I've done before. And when they're just speaking, it will pick up the audio quite well, and then the audio directly being recorded into the video. So even in some windy place, and they also come with dead cats. So in some even noisy or windy place, you can still have the audio, the speech from the narrator's speech very clear. This is the setup I would use if in some kind of place with ambient noise, but you still want to focus onto the speech audio as the priority part. So this is a setup I would recommend to use. So yeah, that's covers to set up of the camera and the basic operation if you wanted to actually record footage, and then also touch a little bit about the audio. So I'm going to remove this for now. And in the last part of this video, I'm going to actually shoot a very small amount of 360 video, and I'm going to demo how to export it from the camera to my laptop, and then stitch it on laptop using Insta360 Studio. And then I will also going to introduce a little bit about things that you're going to use with Adobe Premiere Pro, that if you want to do some advanced post-processing. So yeah, we'll move on to in a few minutes. So after introduced the setup and the use of the camera, now I'm going to give a demo that I'm going to capture some of 360 videos as inside this room, and then I'm gonna export the content to my laptop and show you to the stitching the footage, export them, and then do some processing in different softwares. So now the camera is already on tripod, you can see here. Let's extend it to almost the same height of me. So what I'm going to do is I make sure the screen side is facing me, and I'm going to turn on the camera. So I'm going to wait for the camera to turn on, and I double check on the screen. It has in video mode, and the resolution is 5.7K and then 30 FPS. And then I also check the environment, or now it's a little bit messy because on the table I have everything that are related to this tutorial. But I will just say I'm going to capture content here. I'm going to look around, make sure everything is fine. There's no one being accidentally captured in the scene. And then I think it's okay now. So I'm going to hit the shutter button and then hear the sound. And the camera is rolling, and then I double check on the screen that has the flash yellow light, so it means it's rolling. Okay, so I'm gonna capture about 30 seconds. And then here I'm in the video capturing room, and then pay attention. Now I'm going to use action units, and I make my eye contact with the 360 camera, so you're not going to see me over there. So welcome to this room. So if you look over here, this is my phone, and then if you look at this blue surface, and if you look that way, that's engineering hall. There's outside the window over there. And so that pretty much this is the small meeting room of our lab, and I hope you're gonna enjoy this tutorial. Okay, so now I think I'm finished the recording, and I'm going to tap the shutter button again. and then I'll just wait for it to make sure that I think the piece of clip is being recorded. Now what I'm going to demo is I'm going to export it to my computer and then go it from there. All right, so I just captured some of 360 videos, maybe short, but enough for demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export the content from the camera to my laptop and then stitch it using Insta360 Studio, and then I'm going to show something about post-processing. So I'm going to also screen record my computer, so you will see the ideas as well. So before you actually export the content to the computer, normally what I recommend is do good resource management, because you're going to have raw footage and then stitched footage, and you're going to have the footage into a kind of video processing projects, and then export the footage. So you're going to involve a lot of things on your computer, and in order to not mess them up and then have more a streamlined and structured way, so I always recommend using different folder structures to create like kind of more organized way to manage your resources. So this is my personal preference. So you might find different nomenclature or different styles to create the structures, but whatever they are, it just helps you to organize it a little bit. So normally on video projects or 360 video projects, what I will have is to create 4 different structures, folders. The first one is called raw, and this is where is the footage directly coming out from the camera. And then I'm using Mac, so I think on Windows there are just different key combinations, but the idea is always the same. The second one I would call raw stitched, is the one that has been processed initially from the camera and then being stitched into one complete 360 image and 360 video, sorry. And then the third one is called projects, is where your video processing software are going to generate a bunch of temporary files and their project files. You're going to store them all over there. And the last one I will call export, is the folder where you are going to save the final product of your video. So now let's connect the camera to the laptop and then get things out. So same again, we're going to make sure the camera is off, and we're going to pry open the USB-C port again. And then just as a reminder, you will see even I'm not capturing the camera and using the camera as a capture now, I still keep it on a tripod and selfie stick, making sure it sits firmly on the table. So when I'm exporting stuff and then mumbling around on the camera, it's not going to accidentally tip over and knock the screens. And to place things more safely, I also place the lens cover lock. So because the laptop model that I use has USB-C ports, so I'm using a C2C USB cable. If you are using a different laptop which has USB-A ports, you can use the cable that comes with the camera in the box, which is easier. So just plug into the USB-C cable and then the other end to my laptop. And then the camera should turn it on by itself. If not, it's just in the red light, means it's just being charged, so the camera is not on. Long press the power button to turn on the camera. So it will get into this USB mode, and then your computer should be able to access it. And sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, pop into setting menu and general USB modes. You can change the USB mode to U-disk mode. I'm not sure how can I show it. Let me see if I can bring the camera much closer to. It's over there. Oh, I can't, because once it's in USB mode, the touch screen is disabled. But by now, my computer reads it. But anyway, you can on Insta360's official website, you can find a detailed description about changing the mode, USB mode inside. Or maybe on Windows, it's just different. For Mac, you need to be put into a USB drive mode for the computer to access it. So you see it's here. And then all the content you captured is inside the folder called DCIM, camera 01. And then sometimes the camera has this issue that the date of time inside the camera is off. So you might just want to look, but normally I would think it should not. I will see, you see those INSV files, they are the proprietary format that come with Insta360 cameras. And so they are the raw footage, and without processing, you actually cannot directly play it in something like video player or so. But I would guess by the time looking at 2022, oh, here it is. Actually, after connecting to my phone and before they got into this, the time has been corrected, so it should be 0. It's March 17, and then the last time I use it is about 50:01, yes. And then the raw footage coming from the camera always come in pairs, and it was this file name 00 or 10 because it has two lenses, and the two lenses generates two footage files, so it's all coming in pairs. What you need is just those two, and then drag it to raw folder, and then it will be transferred from the camera to a local folder for a bit of moment. Because I captured only 30 seconds-ish, so the file in total is only little bit less than 500 megabytes. So the transfer will be very fast. It will be just done when I'm talking. But if you captured longer and lengthy video footages, the file will be very huge. It will take some time to capture, to be transferred from the camera to your computer. So just make sure your computer is plugged in, has power supply. So now that the footage has been transferred to RAW, and then next thing I'm going to do is to use Insta360 Studio to stitch them. So Insta360 Studio is a program that provided by Insta360, and it's available both on Mac OS and Windows. So just open it. So it's here. So the file looks like this. It's a main browser timeline. It can do some basic editing, but now we're going to use it to stitch the file and preview it. Drag both the original raw footage from the camera into the studio window, drop onto the left. It will start this importing. Now you can preview the content. So this is a timeline, and you can use keyboard control to control the playback. So it has this fisheye lenses. Normally what I do is to switch it to default, and I can zoom in a little bit onto the footage. And then also I can drag around to see. So now I'm reviewed like which camera I use for video capturing and what's inside this frame. So you can double check. Everything looks all good, and you can even do playback. So this is the preview. And then one thing you can do here is to do the trim. So say in the beginning, because I'm hitting the buttons and my hands are in the shot, I don't want it, I can drag it from the handle over here to remove some of the beginning parts, and then same as on the ending. So these two brackets, kind of like a frame out in this initial stage, which part from the raw footage I would like to be stitched and then an output. So say I just did some adjustment on the choice of the trimming. So say I just want these parts, and then remove some of the beginning and end, and then I look at the footage, and then everything looks all good. And also, yeah, the one thing I can demo here. Remember back then I said the camera has a default front. So default front is the front face where the screen are. So when I was doing recording, the screen and the lens is facing me. So I am at the default front. So one way you can find it when you're previewing it in the studio is if you switch to flat by clicking this fish head, like a way of previewing to flat. So this gives you a preview of the entire 360 image. So remember what I said in the first episode of the tutorial, it's essentially just a video format, but now being distorted, and we call it a equal rectangular projection format. So you will see it shows everything being captured, but in a distorted way. And now you will see I am standing in the middle of this frame, so it means I am in the default front. So when the image is being wrapped back, the viewer is always going to look in the middle. So that's the front. So it means I did it right. If you did it in the wrong way, you will see you are on the side. And then when the video starts playing, you are on the other side of the viewer. So yeah, just remember using the default front, and like what I mentioned before. Now I'm going to export the footage. To export the footage, you just do some preview. Everything looks all fine. And let me switch back to default. And then there's an export button on the upper right corner, and click it. And normally, by default, it will just using all the default stitching and the processing, which is suitable for this camera. So I don't change them too much either. So if you have other accessories such as waterproof guards or lens protection cover, you might need to select different options here on this part. It says, so to compensate the light mismatch because you put something else outside of the camera. But now I don't have anything, so I can just use default. And the resolution is 5760 by 2880. This is the default 5.7K, which is good. And the frame rate and encoding format, these are just using default. What you need to change, what you can change is a file name. So I can change it to let's say stitched 01. And then choose the file path because I do have this structure. I would like to put it on the test and then raw stitched, and then hit OK, and I give you estimate size of the size we're gonna have when it's being exported. I just hit OK and then wait. So it depends on the computing performance or the computing power of the computer you are using. So mine is relatively high performance. So you see the stitching process is very fast. On some other machines, or if you have a very large file, the processing might take 20 minutes, half an hour. So just like leave the computer on and then wait for it to complete. Drinking some coffee. Now I see it says 100% and then it says done. And the other one is the earlier test that I did before. So it says done, and you can just open the folder or just go to the folder that you have. You should see a video file, MP4 file has been output, generated inside the raw stitch. And you can check this stitched raw footage for now because it's like the first step of processing. So if you're using a Mac computer, what I would really recommend for Play 360 videos is called the VLC player. It has a road cone as its icon. It's easy to remember. If it is on Windows machine, then it's easier. The default video player on Windows machine can already play 360 videos. You don't need to install any other software. So I would like to open VLC and then just wait a couple minutes. So the VLC media player is open. I can just drop in this stitched footage in there. Yeah, and then it should be playing. So it means it's showing part of it, and I can use my mouse to drag around, and it should have audio. And then I just double check the stitching line. Yeah, things looks fine. There's nothing wrong, and everything's clean. And then so I know the stitching is successful, and I got the stitched raw footage that I need. And until this point, I can disconnect the camera because I don't need the raw footage inside the camera any longer. So I can just minimize the studio. So I'm not going to use this any longer. And it seems like because the camera has been turned off quite long ago, it's already being removed. But you're gonna just pop it off like a regular USB drive. I'm gonna turn it off. Nope. But well, anyway, I'll just leave it on because I can show a little bit more. So next stage, I want to show, so the next stage, I would like to show some advanced post-processing, which you might find it useful in creating some more formal or longer 360 video projects, is to do advanced processing in Adobe Premiere Pro. So Adobe Premiere Pro is a very good video processing software that can support a 360 video format. So I'm gonna cover how to create a project, import your stitched footage. So just remember, Premiere Pro cannot stitch the footage for you. So you have to stitch it somewhere and then use the stitched raw and then use it to editing inside Premiere Pro. So you're gonna import it. And then 3 skills I'm gonna show about Adobe Premiere Pro with 360 videos. The first is to rotate and set the default front view. So in case when you capture, you didn't point camera's default front to the storyteller, but you find that you want the video to start with something else. So you wanted to change the view. There's a way of doing that. And the second one is to insert captions, because it's very common in video processing. So you should use some text to supplement information of the picture that's being shown on the screen. And the third is to properly export the footage as a 360 video. So that's a very important part. If some people didn't do it right, and then they find the video exported from Adobe Premiere is not recognized as a 360 video, it's just become a distorted flat. So that's the painful way, especially in some cases, the footage is very long. They took hours and hours to export it just to find out that it's not exported as a 360 video. That's something that is just really annoying. So yeah, so there's three things I'm going to show. So remember that you have this stitched raw ready, and then we can open Premiere Pro, and I'm using Premiere Pro 2022. I believe from 2018 or 2019, Adobe Premiere already supports 360 video. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. And then we don't need to change anything here, but just give it a proper title. I will call it 360 tutorial, and then the location, I hit browse, and then on Windows and the Mac, and then different versions of Adobe Premiere Pro might have a little bit different in the layout of the buttons, keys, something like that, but generally they are all the same. So I'm going to the place where I created. Remember that place have called projects, so that's where all those video software projects are gonna go. I'm gonna set that place and make sure name is correct. I'm gonna click OK. So then you will be presented with the main user interface of Premiere Pro. So it might look a little bit intimidating if you're first time using it, because it has a lot of things in there, but don't be worried. Editing 360 video in Premiere Pro is relatively easy. So similarly, what you want to do is to import the media. So you go back to the folder, find your stitched raw, drag it, and then drop it onto the left lower corner, which is the library. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction. So this is a library. It stores everything, every resources that are going to be used in your project. And this is the effect control. It's going to control, now it's empty because I don't have anything. And it's going to control the behavior or all the features and the characteristic properties of the contents on your timeline. And this is timeline. Now I don't have anything. So if I drag and drop to onto the timeline, drag this imported footage onto timeline, it will automatically create a sequence. Now let's create a sequence, and then it will show my footage on the timeline. And this is effects control. I'm gonna touch later. So this is a preview of what's on the timeline at this moment. So if I hit play, you will see it's being played, but you're gonna wonder why here is shown as a flat image instead of this VR 360, how I can look around. So what I'm gonna do is, you're gonna click on the lower part of the corner here, there's a plus button, you can click it, and then you're gonna looking for this thing. It's called toggle VR display. You're gonna drag it and then drop it somewhere onto the toolbar, and then hit OK. Now if you go back and hit this toggle VR display, you will see it shrinks into a view and then shows angles. Now you can use your mouse to somehow drag and then drop on the display to see the content. But this is a really limited view, and then especially I'm on the laptop. The window is even smaller. So if you have a bigger display, it will be better, but somehow it's still very limited. You can't see what's on the scene all at the same time. So as an editor or director, you would like to, like what I do is I will just go back to this view. So I have a general control on now what's on the picture, but sometimes I just now and then and go back to VR view to preview for a 360 viewer if everything looks right or not. So this is a basic import. Now I have a timeline. I have things on the 360 video, so I can edit and cut. Say I wanted to remove some of the part, so I just go to C, and click C, and then cut it on timeline, and then go back to selection, and then I can just delete part of it. So you see when I select a footage on timeline, all these properties just goes up. Now, first thing I want to show is to change, it's a little bit, okay, so to change the default front. So now you see if I toggle the VR view and then I set all the angles to 0, you are looking at me. But let's assume you want them to look at the TV here first instead of looking at me. So you go to Effects and Video Effects, under the folder Immersive Video, looking for this tool called VR Rotate Sphere. So you just select it, drag it onto your footage, and then you will find it on its property here. It has VR Rotate Sphere as a part of the property you can change inside all of the other properties. So what we need is just need to panning, because we don't want to tilt or rotate. So you will just rotate on the y-axis is the panning. So if you drag the numbers, you will see the image on the right is actually moving. So it's actually rotating the image to change the default front. So if I want the default front that my viewer look at the TV, when they start a video, I just drag it so the TV become into the middle of the image. Now you will see the TV is here. If I go to VR mode, you will see even the angle is 0. Now they are looking at the TV first. So just like imagine that it's a spherical image, and then I'm actually rotating what's painted on the image by dragging the panning of the view, while the camera is actually still pointing towards a default location. So it's like I shifted the image. So now you're, instead of looking at me, you're looking at something else. So that's the panning. And then another thing is you want to add on captions. So let's say I want to put on some text on the TV because now it's black. Let's switch back to normal. The text tool is here. It's the tab tool. So you just click it and then go to the image and then put your mouse there. And then you can just say, let me see, let's say just hit Lab and Z, and then I go back to Move tool. I can just like move it, use keyboard or something. It's too small, so I'm gonna make it a little larger. So now it's somewhere stays on the TV. But if you go back into VR mode, well, staying here is not going to show what's the problem. I'm gonna move it a little bit. So let's move it to let's move it lower. So I want the text to stay some kind below the TV. But if you go to the VR mode, now you will see the text is obviously distorted. So that's not feel right. I would like to be somehow as flat as the TV. So now the second tool you're going to use to correct this, because normally the video is flat, but 360 video is a spherical. So you need to distort its shape to fit the curvature of the screen. So you're going to need this VR plane to sphere tool here to correct the projection. You simply just drag it, drop onto the block that represents the text, and then you will see the text somehow just shrink back. So if you go to the VR, now you see the text stays on the TV, and then the geometry feature feels correct. So this is the way, if you wanted to transfer something from a flat view to be normal in 360 video, you need to correct the projection to be converted. So that's the second one you're going to use. And anytime you want to create some text or caption or subtitle that people would like to see it correctly in a 360 video, you can always convert to projection and using the VR plane to sphere projection tool as a converter. But you want to add to create a text normally first and then do the conversion after that. So now it has been I do some orientation correction. I did edit some text, and let's assume, say, the video is ready. So how would I export it? So with Adobe Premiere, you need to export the video as a 360 video. I don't use direct export. I use the media encoder that comes with Adobe Premiere Pro by using the combination key Command M. I believe it will be Control M or Windows M on Windows machine. And then you're gonna see export settings. We don't need to change anything here. We directly hit Q. It'll be fine. It will open media encoder for which is a program that accompanied with Premiere Pro. And then this is the default workplace of media encoder. So this footage has already been transferred here, waiting to be as a task. So on the preset browser is all kinds of presets that defines how your video is going to be encoded and exported. We're looking for a type called VR H264, and because this is not a 3D 360 video, we're just using VR microscopic match source stereo audio. So we don't have 3D on visual, we don't have ambisonic audio or spatial audio, just use the most normal one, VR monoscopic match source stereo audio, and drag it, drop onto the preset part here, and then it will use it. Match source means the exported part will match the original raw footage, which is maintain its 5.7K resolution and all the other settings. and then click here to select where you're going to export. So remember, we have this export folder being created at the very beginning. Save, and then just make sure everything's good and click this play button. It will start export. And again, the time might take some extra time to do the exporting. From what I'm seeing here, it's taking about 6 minutes. So I will just wait until the export is ready and then back to you. So you guys don't have to wait. It's just like a snap of finger. You will see it's almost done. Okay, now I can see it has a tick and says it's complete. So now it has been exported. It's time to go to the folders and check if the 360 video, the final production, has been correctly exported or not. So go back to folder, go to export. So here's our exported. Let's change its name to exported 01. And again, we're going to drag it into VCL player to see if it's correctly exported. And then double click for play. And then a double check on the screen that has the flash yellow. So you see when it's open, the default front is the TV. So it means the rotation happened. And then somewhere in the middle, and so I can even drag around. See, it's still 360. It's just now I am on the back side, and then the TV is on the front. So if you go to somewhere in the middle here, maybe. If you look over here, yeah, you see this text appeared on screen, which looks normal. Which means the conversion, the projection conversion is good. And then if you look back, I am just about to pick up my phone, but if you pay attention to my eyes, I'm looking at the lens, and I use the gesture saying, look at here. So I pointed at the other side of the outside window, and a little bit flushed because it's very bright outside. So you see the engineering wing, and then the video has been successfully exported. So you got your 360 video production ready. The last thing is to show it to the audience. So you are either put the 360 video file into a headset and using some player to directly show others using via the VR headset, which is a recommended way of watching 360 video, or you upload it to some supported online platforms such as YouTube. So it can be distributed online, people can see it as long as they have access to internet, and it also supports 360 video. And then also YouTube has a VR application. If people have a headset, they can also watch it online via their headset. So this is about distribution when you get your final products ready. So that pretty much it's the end of this episode. We have a very, very, very long tutorial where I live demo a entire workflow of a 360 video production, start from the cameras, operations, then I show a little bit about the setup, and then I could capture a stage, and then I showed how to export it, and then stitch the footage on your computer, and then do some post-processing using the Insta360 Studio, and then in Adobe Premiere, then export your final product, and then a little bit about distribution. There are alternative ways, such as some people choose to stitch their footage on a mobile phone using some processing application, or using a tablet. So there are of course alternations, but the workflow I demoed is the one that I use more frequently, and I think is more stable and then universal. So this one I would recommend for like processing 360 videos. And then in most of the projects, you will find it's the most stable and then practical way to process your content. So I hope you get a general good idea of what you're gonna do, each step, and what it takes and it looks like if you want to produce some 360 video content. And if you combine with what I told in the first episode, you have pretty gained a good knowledge around this work. And I hope you can get the gear, go out there and have a try yourself, and then shoot some 360 videos and do some editing and have a good feeling of how this thing operates, because learning by doing is the best. But I hope that videos could help you a lot during the process. And then more also coming up on the way, because I might going to cover somehow about like involving viewer interaction in 360 videos, and also if you have several footage that has been designed and laid out in different places, how to combine them into a bigger experience. So until then, see you in next one.